And welcome back to the working week. It is Car Con Carne. I'm James Van Osdell. And Car Con Carne is sponsored today by Siren Records in McHenry, 3902 Main Street, Siren Records in McHenry. During the pandemic, Siren Records has been my go-to. I've made the trip out to McHenry, dug through the sections and bought soundtracks and punk rock and all kinds of stuff. And of course, jazz and blues, all available at Siren Records in McHenry. My guests today, when it comes to the blues, oh man, it doesn't get much better than this. He is the founder, the owner, one of the blues' most important evangelists. Alligator Records, Bruce Iglauer. Bruce Iglauer.
That's how they say it in Japan.
Stop it. And along with Bruce Iglauer, the boss of Alligator Records, is hands down one of the most significant blues artists to emerge over the past 30 years. A woman whose Uncivil War album of last year is yet another masterclass on how the contemporary blues should sound. It's Shemekia Copeland. We're here to celebrate. Hi. Hello, we're here to celebrate 50 years of Alligator Records. If that young boy from Appleton had never made the trip to Chicago, this would be a much different interview today. If that young Bruce had never made that journey.
Yeah, I could have been retired. I could have had a regular job.
This coming weekend, we're recording this on March 8th. This coming weekend, it is Sweet Home Chicago, an online blues celebration. Performances from Billy Branch with the Sons of Blues. Also, Shemekia Copeland, Grammy-nominated vocalist. I can't speak today. I've had way too much caffeine. Little Ed Williams. He'll have his slide guitar. He'll have his fez. And Chicago blues guitarist and songwriter Toronzo Cannon. Bruce Iglauer will be the master of ceremonies, as is appropriate. And it's worth noting, when I book this podcast, I'm usually trying to match guests with available slots. I don't really think too much about where the dates fall. It is International Women's Day, and it is badass that one of the most awesome women in blues is here with us today. I just want to acknowledge the awesomeness that is Shemekia Copeland. So 50 years ago, Bruce, Hound Dog Taylor, this, I'm holding the cassette in my hands.
Not everyone has the cassette.
This was a later.
Makes you special.
This was several years after the record. I want to say this was like late 80s when you put this out.
Well, I'm not sure when we put out the cassettes, but there were no cassettes commercially. There were no cassettes, period. In 1971, when I started, there were those big, flat, black vinyl things. And that was what we put out that first Hound Dog Taylor record on, recorded in May of 1971, 2 nights in the studio, 4 hours a night, direct to 2-track. We mixed it as we went. I couldn't afford multi-track recording. And it was a band that was filling small clubs on the south side of Chicago. There was no north side scene at that point. Right. And they were just one of the local bands that I fell in love with. That they were so much fun and they were so energetic. And boy, if you think blues is sad music, listen to Hound Dog Taylor. That's not sad at all.
Oh, this will lift you up. And what amazes me is this really holds up. 1971 to today, this sounds fresh and exciting and real and raw. I still love this. I mean, most labels, when they start out, they hope to get on base. I mean, you knocked it out of the park. You set the bar impossibly high for yourself, Bruce.
Well, some people think that my career has gone entirely downhill since then.
No, I'm looking at Shemekia Copeland. It has not gone downhill.
No, it has not gone downhill. I have been extraordinarily fortunate to bring talent and find talent like Shemekia, and sometimes the talent finds me. But Shemekia, I've known Shemekia. I first saw her and she first knocked me on my butt when she was 17. And I saw her, there was a club called Chicago Blues in New York. And I got stranded in New York for a night. I went to a business meeting and missed my plane getting back. So I called up a friend and said, hey, I'd like to hear some live blues. Who should I go see? And my friend said, oh, you got to see Shemekia Copeland. And I walked into that little club. And what do you think they're worth, Shemekia? 30 people in there?
At the most.
and she was playing with, her father was a famous, wonderful blues musician, Johnny Clyde Copeland, who I had the pleasure of and by that I mean the great pleasure of recording on the Grammy-winning album Showdown with Albert Collins and Robert Cray. A Texas blues man with a voice as big as All Outdoors. And I went to see Shemekia, and if I had closed my eyes, I never would have believed that was a teenage girl in front of me, because it was some of the most grown-up music and emotionally deep music. I still remember you did Ghetto Child, the song you do almost every night. And at that time, of course, you were, that was your life. You had lived that. It's a song her father wrote, a very, very bold song that says, I'm only a ghetto child in this so-called free land, which was quite a ballsy thing to say at the time he wrote it and performed it. And I just could not believe the maturity and she grabbed me by the angst, she wrenched me. And I thought, well, she's having a good time and she's energetic, and maybe I'm being fooled by my eyes. So I went back and I came back to New York, and I arranged with her manager and her most prolific songwriter, John Ahn, to do a demo session to see whether it worked if there wasn't an audience and if I couldn't see her because she was off in a booth in the studio. And it was just as good without a single audience member there. And I thought, wow, I have found the next great blues artist of her generation, the next up and coming blues artist, the blues artist female blues artist. And I should just say, in one recent review, they just said she's the best blues singer in the world. They didn't say the best female blues singer. And,
wow.
and that was kind of my thought. How did I get this lucky? And it just, we've done 7 albums, right? 7 albums. Mm-hmm. And she just gets better and better.
Shemeika, what was?
Wow, thank you. I'm blushing.
We can't see because
I'm a truth teller.
I mean, you were born into the blues, Shemeika, but when were you first aware? Do you remember when you were first aware of Alligator Records?
I guess I was first aware during the Showdown record, but even then I was just, not even a decade old when that record came out. But that's when I first started hearing about Alligator Records and Bruce Iglauer. And I remember my dad coming home with the Grammy from that record.
Oh yeah, what a great experience.
I was on my way to school, and he was driving by me in the van holding the Grammy out the window, look, baby, And so that was when I first became aware. But then, of course, life went on, and, I had absolutely no idea that, less than 10 years later, I'd be on Alligator Records, Well,
let's talk about that. 1998, I mean, right after Bruce saw you in New York, you put out your first album, and this was not long after your father had died. That's a lot to process for an 18-year-old. You had a lot going on in your life. Do you remember what it was like what was going through your mind as a late teenager, dealing with the first record release on the big blues label, stuff going on personally?
Yeah, it was a lot. I think that it was a lot, but at the same time, I was very, very well supported by family. I had John, I really felt like those guys were there to protect me and make sure that I was going to be okay. So I just went out on the road and sang the blues, just went out and did it. And I got to tell you, it's all been a blur because it's now 20 some odd years later. And it's like, I promised myself that I would be more present with the next 20 years of my life, because the last 20 just went by so fast.
So again,
I was recalling, I'm working on a 50th anniversary double LP triple CD collection, and I was recalling that right after that record came out, I think weeks after it came out, Shemeika was in Chicago, and I got her booked on the Chicago Blues Festival, but not on the big stage. She was on the Crossroads stage, and pretty early in the day, and people who had never heard of her came from every other stage. Just the word got just spread across the festival grounds, and people dropped everything and rushed over. And she sold more CDs than any other artist on the festival. And she was literally unheard of in Chicago when she did that performance. And I remember because Shemeika, you would at that point, you never took a drink. And somebody handed you something to drink because you were thirsty, and it was a beer. And I remember you took a little sip of beer and kind of made a face and put it down. Now she has a glass of wine now and then. Not
now
very
and
often.
every chance I get. Whatever
But
I can.
it was amazing. I wasn't the only person who just thought this is something very special.
And again, Sweet Home Chicago, the online blues celebration. Shemeika will be on that bill. Bruce, you are hosting it. That's happening starting on Saturday night, and that's going to be tremendous. I mean, the lineup, you've got people chiming in with well wishes, birthday greetings, the likes of Mavis Staples and Charlie Musselwhite, Marcia Ball, Corky Siegel. This is going to be fantastic. Staying on Shemeika's musical output for one moment, talking about her addressing, talking about her like she's not there. Shemeika, talking about the way you address social issues. Uncivil War, let's be honest, the country's broken, blues can heal everything. Give God the Blues is one of the standout tracks on the album. God ain't no Republican, he ain't no Democrat, he ain't even independent. God's above all that. Basically, this is your cut the crap. We're all
exactly. That's what I've been saying. I mean, this is a country entirely made up of immigrants. And I don't know at one point, who decided to start to hate who first, but it makes absolutely no sense to me. It makes no sense. What makes, to me, America great is the fact that we're all different. You know what I mean? Absolutely. And we're all Americans from somewhere else. When you think about it, they sent the British, they would say they're going to send us, you're scum, you're disgusting, you're horrible, we're going to send you off to the Americas, and that's what they used to say. But then look what we made of this country. Look at what happened and how it got built up, and I just wish we could just, all the divisiveness and all that stuff would just stop, and we could just be what we're supposed to be. Ken, I'm telling you, we'd be a force to be reckoned with if we would just do what we're supposed to do. And if folks would stop listening or looking at their news channel of choice and deciding to hate everyone else.
Use the term news loosely.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. News channel of choice, and then decides, to hate everybody else. I mean, we just need to stop it. I'm so sick of it.
Staying on the album, you cover Under My Thumb. Is the guitar sounds that Will Kimbrough makes the sexiest sounds alive, or is it just me? Especially in that song.
I think everything he does is sexy, so I don't think it's just you. No, I think it's very, very sexy.
We're learning more about you, James, because I've listened. I really like his guitar sound, but I didn't really think of it as sexy.
On that particular song, on the cover of Under My Thumb, it sounds slinky and sexy and super cool.
Yeah.
Another song
He's
on
a
the
super
album,
cool musician and producer.
Yeah.
Another song I want to talk about on the album is Dirty Saints. This is your love letter to Dr. John. And this is how I tie it all back to Alligator, because I think one of the first Alligator records I became aware of as a kid was Gumbo.
I reissued Gumbo. Of course, it wasn't originally on Alligator. It was on Warner Brothers. I got rights to reissue it only on vinyl back when vinyl was the medium.
This was in the 80s when I discovered it.
Right. And we did a little reissue series of records from other labels. And I was able to acquire the original mixed master tapes. And I had to go to New York. They brought them over from the Atlantic. I'm sorry, it was Atlantic, wasn't it? The Atlantic Vault. And we mastered it for vinyl. And then the messenger stayed right there and took the tapes back. But after that record came out, I got a letter from Jerry Wexler at Atlantic Records saying, that's what it was always supposed to sound like. They screwed it up in the original mastering. Now it sounds great.
That's awesome.
And Dr. John, of course, helped me with the production of Professor Longhair's last record, the only one on Alligator, Crawfish Fiesta. He came in and played guitar, his original instrument, because we didn't need a piano player because we had Professor Longhair. And then, we kind of got to be friends, and he dubbed me, he loved making nicknames for people. And he used to call me Mr. Illegal Hour. And, which I thought was a great nickname. And then he produced Shemeika's third album.
Right. Well, the first time I listened through Uncivil War, I stumbled on Dirty Saint, and I didn't know the background. I didn't know the lyrics. I started listening to it. I'm like, oh, there's a definite New Orleans vibe, and there's a Marie Laveau reference. Oh, this is for Dr. John. Okay, I completely get it now.
Yeah,
So,
I loved him so much, and was devastated when he passed away. And so he was just so fantastic to me.
he was the coolest. One of the most irresponsible things I did in college, I was going to college in Lawrence, Kansas, and he was playing a small bar in Kansas City, and I had a final the next day, and I was completely unprepared for it. And my choice was drive to Kansas City to see Dr. John or study for the final. Long story short, I failed the final.
Well, I think you had your priorities straight.
Yeah, me too.
My argument at the time was, 30 years from now, will I remember that I studied for a final or that I saw Dr. John in a small club? What's going to be more important in my life? Yeah, it was Dr. John. It was, seeing Iko in a small bar.
Well, I think I can tell the story now that after we did Crawfish Fiesta, he was in Chicago for a gig and he wanted to cut some demos. And with the recording engineer I was working with at that time, we snuck into Curtis Mayfield's studio, where the studio that I was using to record in for my Chicago records, in the middle of the night, and cut 3 or 4 songs with Dr. John just as demos with a bunch of members of Albert Collins' band and a bouzouki player, a Greek guy who played bouzouki, the kind of, I don't know, oud-like instrument. I'm not sure whether I'm using the right term, but the ones you see in the Greek restaurants. And
Wow.
and Curtis Mayfield never found out.
That's a cool story.
And I'm not going to name the engineer.
Bruce, as blues labels go, I mean, Alligator really is the last man standing, isn't it?
And not quite, but it's true that we have remained. I mean, it's been 50 years. My friends who recently bought Delmark Records are releasing new albums on Delmark. Thomas Roof in Germany. There are some other labels. Joe Bonamassa's label just released Joanna Connor's new record. But we have the biggest catalog, and we're the most active label that's absolutely dedicated to this kind of music in the world.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the future of blues go, well, we're looking at part of it right there with Shemekia Copeland. And
I don't know. I'm getting old. What do you mean?
Oh, stop it. You're talking to the wrong people right now.
Remember, the first artist I signed was 55 when I signed him.
Oh, wow.
So you've got a ways to go.
I'm thinking about Kingfish, who's, I could be his mama. So
right. Kingfish is my youngest artist. He just turned 22.
Yeah. That's awesome. So the blues is alive and well. I mean, I think of Toronzo, who will be part of this event, the live stream event, Selwyn Birchwood. Where do you see the blues going, Bruce?
Well, one of the things that I really like about what Shemeika is doing is she's not sticking to the old blues rules. She's not sticking to the rules about all blues has to have the same structures or the same beats, or it's got to go ba-bump, 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 or it's got to start, woke up this morning and I got drunk. None of those things. She's singing blues songs about today. She's singing from the point of view of a contemporary young person. Let's call you a young person. You're younger than I am. And she's singing about social issues. And now blues traditionally has been more about issues of personal relationships. But the thing that's been true of blues, and is true of what Shemeika is doing now, is it's all very direct, honest. It's not hidden in metaphors. It speaks straight from the shoulder and straight from the soul to the listener. Blues is not music of metaphors and similes. Blues is music that tells it like it is, and blues also was always easy music to dance to. And if blues is going to continue, it's got to absorb the way people dance now, not the way people danced 10 and 20 and 30 years ago, not the way I used to try to dance when I failed to dance. It's got to speak to contemporary audiences. It's all about that angst, about reaching into you and reaching that deep spot and squeezing it out. Blues should make you feel better, but sometimes by making you feel worse before it makes you feel better. And so I love having visionary artists. I love having artists who aren't trying to do what's been done before. You're never going to do a Muddy Waters song the way Muddy did it and sound better. You're only going to sound worse. If you want to rethink it, if you want to reimagine the song, sure, great. But don't try to do what's already been done. Because when Muddy Waters came to Chicago, he had heard Son House and Robert Johnson, but he didn't come here to sound like them. He came here to create music that was influenced by them. And when B.B. King started out, he was very influenced by T-Bone Walker, but he didn't try to sound like T-Bone Walker. And the secret is to learn the tradition, absorb the tradition, and then make something of your own. And Shemeika is such a perfect example of that.
Well, thank you so much. And, I adored Coco Taylor, but like the best compliment she ever gave me was that she loved me because I wasn't trying to be like her. Mm-hmm. Because I knew I couldn't. You know what I mean? I knew I couldn't. And so just try to be your own original self, the best version of you could possibly be.
Carve your own path.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce, you mentioned you're working on the 50th anniversary comp. I'm holding the 45th anniversary comp here. How close are you to putting that one out?
I think, it's hard to get vinyl manufactured these days. All the vinyl plants are backed up because there's this vinyl, I guess I'd say, craze going on. So we have the vinyl master and packaging at the plant, and we're trying to schedule the CD so it comes out about the same time. I'm hoping for June.
Great.
If the vinyl takes a lot longer, I may put out the CD first and just put out the vinyl when I can. But I know people have fallen in love with vinyl again. Now, I loved CDs because they were portable and hard to destroy. But vinyl is so much fun to hold and touch and read. It's got that visceral, physical feeling that you really own something.
I agree. And, the 180 gram, that's hard to destroy. Or harder than records used to be.
Yeah, but it's hard to play in your car too.
Fair, but I'm one of those people. I collected vinyl like crazy as a kid, and I've come back to it, and it is kind of a crazed reaction. I'm one of those guys. There's my copy of Cold Snap behind me. I love having the records to hold and play.
Oh, I have walls of vinyl, but I'm not so much a collector of new vinyl, because I like the portability of CDs. And now I actually use streaming services as well, even though, as Shemeika knows, they pay us far too little.
Yes.
All right. So we get to see, Shemeika, we get to see you play on Saturday, which, what a cathartic thing that must be for you after this past year.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to be on stage with real musicians, and we had a lot of fun. It was really, really a lot of fun.
It was so great to be in the room with everybody together. The blues world is like a community, because this isn't like the hit rock and roll world. Blues is performed in a lot of places with no dressing rooms. So the artists are out there amongst the audience, and the artists are always out there with each other. One of the things I love about Chicago is people do all kinds of sitting in. If an artist doesn't have a gig, they'll go see somebody else and come up and play a song. So even though Shemeika wasn't able to perform with her own band, Billy Branch's band, which is a very fine group, rehearsed her songs and along with Little Ed's songs and Toronzo's songs, but just hanging out backstage and being this extended family of the blues, and you can feel it in the performances. Everybody's so excited to be playing music again.
Oh, I can't wait. So that is on Saturday. You can watch it from that point forward. Sweet Home Chicago, an online blues celebration.
And I want to say thank you to the people at Governor State University, because they're the ones who conceived of this. Originally, it was going to be a live concert. We started talking about this a year ago, January. And then when the pandemic hit, rather than just saying, well, we're going to shelve this, they decided, let's do it as a video concert. So they, brought in a crew. They put together the whole show, and paid everybody, which was pretty nice because it's been very hard for musicians financially. Almost all musicians are self-employed, so they're part of the gig economy. And as you know, for those people, collecting unemployment and just surviving has been very tough. So everybody was happy to get paid, and the respect of getting paid, of course. So I really want to bow to Lana and Jane and the people at Governor's State for making this happen.
And thank you for saying that. I should have mentioned that earlier. The show, the live stream show, is on their YouTube channel.
Right, and it was filmed in their beautiful, if empty, performance center, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary. And I want to go back there with an audience, and I know that Shemeika feels the same.
I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to do it again. We should do it all over again when we're able.
Yeah, so we can come see you in person and make the room really loud for you.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm concerned, everybody's worried about COVID, but when this pandemic is over, I think everyone's going to have to be concerned with getting mono, because there's going to be lots of hugging and kissing going on.
Trading one public health concern for another. All right, Shemekia Copeland, Bruce, thank you so much for doing this. We'll look forward to seeing you on the YouTube stream on Saturday night.
Right. Make sure you tell folks, where to find it. And it is a ticketed event, and it's also going to be available on demand for the following month.
Perfect.